Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing your economics exam preparation series. This is topic 2. We are discussing the production possibility curve. This topic appears in your exams every single year. In this lesson, you will learn what the production possibility curve is, how to draw and interpret it, the concepts of scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost using the curve, shifts in the curve, and how to answer exam questions. Let us begin. First, what is the production possibility curve? The production possibility curve, often called PPC, is a graph that shows the maximum combinations of two goods that an economy can produce using all its available resources and technology. It is also called the production possibility frontier, or PPF. The word frontier means boundary. The curve shows the boundary between what is possible to produce and what is not possible. Points on the curve are attainable and efficient. Points inside the curve are attainable but inefficient. Points outside the curve are unattainable with current resources. Let me explain this with a simple example. Imagine an economy that produces only two goods: guns and butter. Guns represent military goods. Butter represents civilian goods. The economy has limited resources: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. It also has a certain level of technology. If the economy uses all its resources to produce guns, it can produce 100 guns and 0 butter. If it uses all its resources to produce butter, it can produce 100 butter and 0 guns. But the economy can also produce combinations in between. For example, 80 guns and 20 butter, or 50 guns and 50 butter, or 20 guns and 80 butter. The production possibility curve shows all these possible combinations. Let me draw the curve for you in words. Imagine a graph. The vertical axis measures guns. The horizontal axis measures butter. The curve starts at the top of the vertical axis at 100 guns and 0 butter. It slopes downward to the right. It ends on the horizontal axis at 0 guns and 100 butter. The curve is bowed outward, not a straight line. This bowed shape is very important. It represents the law of increasing opportunity cost. As you produce more of one good, you must give up increasing amounts of the other good. Now let me explain the key concepts using the PPC. First, scarcity. Scarcity is shown by the fact that there are unattainable points outside the curve. The economy cannot produce any combination outside the curve because resources are limited. For example, the economy cannot produce 90 guns and 90 butter. That point is outside the curve. It is unattainable. This is scarcity. The economy does not have enough resources to produce everything people want. Second, choice. Choice is shown by the fact that the economy must choose which point on the curve to produce. It cannot produce at every point at the same time. It must choose one combination. If it chooses more guns, it must choose less butter. If it chooses more butter, it must choose less guns. This is the trade-off. Every society must choose where to operate on the PPC. Third, opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is shown by the slope of the curve. As you move from one point to another, you give up some of one good to get more of the other. The amount you give up is the opportunity cost. For example, moving from point A at 0 guns and 100 butter to point B at 20 guns and 80 butter means giving up 20 butter to get 20 guns. The opportunity cost of 20 guns is 20 butter. Moving from point B to point C at 50 guns and 50 butter means giving up 30 butter to get 30 guns. The opportunity cost of 30 guns is 30 butter. Notice that the opportunity cost increases as you produce more guns. This is the law of increasing opportunity cost. Why does increasing opportunity cost happen? Because resources are not equally suited to producing both goods. Some resources are better at producing guns. Some resources are better at producing butter. When you start producing guns, you use the resources that are best at making guns. The opportunity cost is low. But as you produce more and more guns, you have to use resources that are better at making butter. Those resources are not as good at making guns. So you have to give up more and more butter to get the same number of guns. This is why the PPC is bowed outward. Let me give you a real example. Imagine a farmer with one plot of land. The land can produce both cassava and maize. But the land is better for cassava. The farmer can produce 100 cassava and 0 maize, or 0 cassava and 40 maize, or combinations in between. When the farmer first switches from cassava to maize, he uses the part of the land that is okay for maize. He gives up a little cassava to get a little maize. But as he produces more maize, he has to use the part of the land that is excellent for cassava. He gives up a lot of cassava to get a little more maize. This is increasing opportunity cost. Now let me explain the different points on the PPC. Any point on the curve is attainable and efficient. Attainable means the economy can produce that combination with its current resources. Efficient means the economy is using all its resources fully and in the best possible way. There is no waste. You cannot produce more of one good without producing less of the other. Any point inside the curve is attainable but inefficient. Inside the curve means the economy is not using all its resources, or it is using them poorly. There is unemployment. There is waste. For example, if the economy produces 40 guns and 40 butter, but it could produce 50 guns and 50 butter with the same resources, then 40 and 40 is inefficient. The economy can move to the curve by using its resources better. Any point outside the curve is unattainable. The economy cannot produce that combination with its current resources and technology. For example, 90 guns and 90 butter is outside the curve. The economy cannot reach that point. This shows scarcity. Wants are unlimited, but resources are limited. Now let me explain shifts in the PPC. The PPC can shift outward or inward. An outward shift means the economy can produce more of both goods. This is economic growth. An inward shift means the economy can produce less of both goods. This is economic decline. What causes the PPC to shift outward? Several things. First, an increase in resources. If the economy discovers more oil, or more people are born, or more factories are built, the PPC shifts outward. Second, an improvement in technology. If the economy invents better machines or better farming methods, the PPC shifts outward. The same resources can produce more output. Third, better education and training. If the workforce becomes more skilled, productivity increases. The PPC shifts outward. Fourth, investment in capital goods. If the economy produces more machines and factories instead of consumer goods, future production capacity increases. The PPC shifts outward over time. What causes the PPC to shift inward? Several things. First, a decrease in resources. If there is a war that destroys factories, or a natural disaster that destroys farmland, or a disease that kills many workers, the PPC shifts inward. Second, a decline in technology. This is rare but can happen if knowledge is lost. Third, natural disasters like earthquakes, floods or droughts can reduce productive capacity. Fourth, war can destroy infrastructure and reduce the labor force. Let me give you examples of PPC shifts. When Nigeria discovered oil, the PPC shifted outward. The country could produce more goods and services. When a country experiences a recession, it might move from a point on the curve to a point inside the curve. This is not a shift of the curve. It is a movement inside the curve due to unemployment. The curve itself has not changed. The economy is just not using its resources fully. When an economy grows over time, the PPC shifts outward year by year. This is what every country wants. Economic growth means the PPC shifts outward. Now let me explain the difference between a movement along the PPC and a shift of the PPC. A movement along the PPC occurs when the economy reallocates resources from one good to another. For example, moving from more butter to more guns is a movement along the curve. The curve itself does not move. The economy is just choosing a different point. A shift of the PPC occurs when the economy's productive capacity changes. The entire curve moves. This is different from a movement along the curve. Exam questions often test whether you know this difference. Now let me talk about productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Productive efficiency means producing at the lowest possible cost. Any point on the PPC is productively efficient. The economy is using all its resources in the best way. It cannot produce more of one good without producing less of the other. Allocative efficiency means producing the combination of goods that society wants most. The PPC alone cannot tell you which point is allocatively efficient. That depends on society's preferences. The best point on the PPC is the one that makes society happiest. Different societies will choose different points. Let me give you a real-world example. During World War II, many countries moved along their PPC from civilian goods to military goods. They produced fewer cars, fewer houses, and fewer consumer goods. They produced more tanks, more guns, and more ammunition. This was a movement along the curve. After the war, they moved back to more civilian goods. This was another movement along the curve. Over time, the PPC shifted outward because of technological improvements from the war. So, both movements along the curve and shifts of the curve happen in real life. A common exam question asks you to draw and explain the production possibility curve. Here is a sample answer. The production possibility curve is a graph that shows the maximum combinations of two goods an economy can produce with its available resources and technology. The curve slopes downward from left to right. It is bowed outward due to the law of increasing opportunity cost. Points on the curve are attainable and efficient. Points inside are attainable but inefficient. Points outside are unattainable. The curve shows scarcity because points outside are unreachable. It shows choice because the economy must choose which point on the curve to produce. It shows opportunity cost because moving from one point to another requires giving up some of one good to get more of the other. Another exam question asks you to explain the law of increasing opportunity cost. Here is your answer. The law of increasing opportunity cost states that as the production of a good increases, the opportunity cost of producing an additional unit rises. This happens because resources are not equally suited to producing all goods. When an economy first starts producing more of a good, it uses the resources best suited for that good. The opportunity cost is low. As production continues, the economy must use resources that are better suited for other goods. The opportunity cost increases. This is why the production possibility curve is bowed outward. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between a movement along the PPC and a shift of the PPC. Here is your answer. A movement along the PPC occurs when the economy reallocates resources from one good to another. The curve itself does not move. The economy simply chooses a different point on the same curve. A shift of the PPC occurs when the economy's productive capacity changes. The entire curve moves outward or inward. Outward shifts are caused by increases in resources, improvements in technology, or better education. Inward shifts are caused by decreases in resources, natural disasters, or war. Another exam question asks you to list the causes of an outward shift in the PPC. Here is your answer. An outward shift in the PPC is caused by an increase in the quantity or quality of resources. This includes an increase in the labor force through population growth or immigration. It includes an increase in capital through investment in machines and factories. It includes an increase in land through discovery of new natural resources. It also includes improvements in technology, better education and training, and better management. Let me summarize what you have learned. The production possibility curve shows the maximum combinations of two goods an economy can produce. Points on the curve are attainable and efficient. Points inside are inefficient. Points outside are unattainable. The curve shows scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. The law of increasing opportunity cost makes the curve bowed outward. Movements along the curve show reallocation of resources. Shifts of the curve show changes in productive capacity. Outward shifts come from growth. Inward shifts come from decline. That is all for Topic 2. Practice drawing the PPC. Practice labeling the axes. Practice identifying points on, inside, and outside the curve. Practice explaining the causes of shifts. See you in Topic 3.